So let's talk about performance management, guys, before we get into some questions. Looking at that first 3-month period, and we've kind of covered this off in a number of points that you've raised throughout the conversation to now, but really looking at how you guys manage basically what was on paper and what was in the interview process to 3 months down the track when we're into the new role, how that team member is performing. Jamie, how do you guys manage that process internally with new recruits?
Yeah, well, with our contractors and our new team members, we always have a 6-month probation period. But even in that 6-month probation period, we always have a performance review. So we have a 6-monthly performance review. And you formally do that. I'm just actually helping a client manager today in training do one of them for his staff. And look, I can't stress the importance of just that 6-month review. And just being involved again in a couple of them recently, it's a whole different conversation piece. You're not talking about the work. You're actually it's just at another level. It's talking about and you do it together. So when you do the performance review, you've got the bookkeeper or the accountant there, and then you've got the manager there, and they have to agree on the performance level. Is it excellent? Is it very good, or poor, or meets expectation? And just the discussions that you have is totally different than what you do every other day of the year. And then again, I find if it's a good fit, it's a really rapport building exercise. It's a rapport building exercise between the manager and between the person on their team. And I've just seen that come through time and time again, because again, it's a different discussion. They're different conversations around, well, how am I actually going? What can I do better? What are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? What are the feedback from the person to the firm, to the manager? Mm-hmm. What are your long-term goals? Today, like we discussed, this particular Filipino team member had been with us nearly 5 years. And, the manager said, well, what are your long-term goals? And we said, well, look, there's no reason you can't be a senior production manager. 5 years is a long time. And then she said, well, what do I need to do to achieve that? And we said, well, you need to master Division 7A, non-commercial loss rule. Like, we gave her a list of things. And then, so we're going to give her some knowledge shot exercises to hone in on those skills. So, mm-hmm. So you can get the feeling of it. You're having a whole different level of discussions around where they're at now, like where they've come from, where they're at now, and where do they want to be, but what do they have to achieve in order to get to that next level if there is a progression for them. So, okay. And this team member that we had too, she'd started talking to clients with the production work. She'd started, and we said, what have you achieved in the last 6 months? And she said, well, for the first time in 5 years, I've started talking to one of our major clients, really successfully, mind you. So if we hadn't had that performance review, right, we wouldn't even discussed any of that. So it's critical that you have your 6 monthly performance reviews.
So just on that, because one of Ed's previous points is, looking to see the performance of that team member over the first 3 months or so. I would expect that by the 6-month mark, there's no real questions in your mind that team member's not going to work out, because we would have identified it earlier in the piece in that sort of first 90 days, whether they are going to work out or not, and have addressed the issues then. Is that the case? Or, how have you got certain checkpoints in place over the first, say, 90 days to make sure that that's right?
Yeah, you'll normally check in with the manager and senior production manager or the buddy to see how they're going over the first 30 days, because what the risk is, well, we often sort of don't want to deal with it, because we've got the next client to see, or we've got the next job to do. But if you sort of almost brush it under the carpet. But if you actually have a really detailed look at how their performance is, and based on what you hired them to do, you can make a good assessment of whether they're going to cut the mustard, as they say, or not. But that's what the probation period's for, Brenton. If, you know, the risk is if they're just not going to make it based on the assessment that you make around how fast are they doing the jobs. You know, I remember doing this years ago when I was more even closer to it. I used to have this like 3 strikes you're out thing. You know, I'm happy to obviously show people something how to do it once. Don't fix their mistakes. Happy to show them a second time, but geez, I'd really question it the third time. And if I had to show them the fourth time, right, it's like, nah, you're incompetent, you know. So 3 strikes you're out. I used to have that exact same. And 4 strikes was like, well, nah, it's past that. So yeah, well, that's it. I mean, if you think about it, if you have to show someone 4 times how to do something and you've done a video or you've done a document, they're just not cut out to do the job. And so that was my rule of thumb in that process, because yeah, it's just, you know, it's like for those of you who have got kids, you know, if I show my son how to do something 3 times and he doesn't get it, you know, well, there's, you know, maybe he's not cut out to be a carpenter or whatever it is, you know. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Ed, before we get into any questions, any comments on that?
Actually, it's not as easy as you might think. After 3 months, often, you know, you're so busy and you have this thing in your head that says, oh, well, they're doing something, so something is better than nothing. And then if I have to start again, then, you know, all the effort of starting again, you know, they're doing something, at least they're doing something, so I'll just keep them going. And that's a big mistake. And it's much better to cut the ties there and start again. And then the other ones that are hard is where they're doing okay, but they're not doing brilliantly. And then it's the same thing, you know. So oh yeah, they're doing at least they're doing something. And to start again is going to take so much more effort, and then you tend not to do that. So, but the really good managers know that at the end of the day, you know, you've got to be tough. Otherwise, you're only as good as your 2IC, your second in charge. The client managers, the senior client managers, are only as good as their senior production managers. If their senior production managers are really good, their job is really good and they can really perform. So the senior client manager has to go and see the clients and get in front of the clients more often. So the more often they get in front of the clients, the more work you get out of them. So you want to get them out in front of the clients. But if the work isn't done properly by the senior production manager and they're constantly, you know, in the office fixing it up, then they're not going to get enough time with the clients. So they're only as good as the senior production manager. They're 2IC, if you like. And the really good senior client managers know that, you know, their own performance is only as good as and bad as the person that they're going to hire. And that's why you've got to get them involved with the hiring. You've got to make them responsible for the recruitment. You can help them get all the logistics done and, you know, put the ads in and all that kind of stuff, but the decision must be theirs. And, you know, you need to put 2 or 3, you know, finalists, if you like, final candidates for them to choose. And you can debate it with them. You can talk to them about it, and together you make the decision. So that's all I wanted to add to what Jamie was saying.